Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the live streaming worship service of the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside. I'm Grace Preuss, a member of the worship committee, and I will be your worship associate today. We invite you to worship with us with an open mind and an open heart. As we enter into sacred time, created by our presence and shared intent, I invite you all to get comfortable. Turn down your phones or other distracting devices and make a conscious decision to set aside for this 1 hour the self-protective walls we all keep around our heart and our thoughts. Let us remember and explore together what has drawn us to this faith, or learn what this faith is about. And relax. Let the stresses of the outside world slip away as together we focus on this time together. And together we breathe. Although we are now a community connected largely by electronic means, one day we will be together again. Yet even now, we are those seekers with the yearnings to learn, to understand, to make the world a better place, and with the same desire for fellowship. And so we are here, seeking that living, interconnected web of which we are a part. Let go of the anxiety, the fears, the expectations of your own or others' making, and join us in this hour of beloved community. And so, together, we breathe. Our opening hymn this morning is I Wish I Knew How. Please rise in spirit and join us. And because we are doing this, nobody will know if you sing off key. For our call to worship, I invite you to read with me This Unitarian Universalist Affirmation of Hope by Loretta Williams. We, bearers of the dream, affirm that a new vision of hope is emerging. We pledge to work for that community in which justice will be actively present. We affirm that there is struggle yet ahead, yet we know that in the struggle is the hope for the future. We affirm that we are co-creators of the future, not passive pawns. And we stand united in affirmation of our hope and vision of a just and inclusive society. We affirm the unity of all persons. We affirm brotherhood and sisterhood that allows us to touch upon each other's humanity. We affirm a unity that opens our eyes, ears, and hearts to see the different but common forms of oppression, suffering, and pain. Yet we are one in the image of God, and we celebrate our hopes for human unity. Within ourselves and within the gathered community, we will discover the strength not to hide in indifference, affirming that hope, publicly expressed, energizes and enables us to move forward. Together, we pledge action to transcend barriers, be they racial, political, economic, social, or religious. We pledge to make our tomorrows become our todays. Steve Fuji will be reading for us a sermon by Reverend Kristen Grassell Schmidt. We are approaching the holiday season of a very unusual year, a time when we traditionally gather together, contemplate the events and milestones of the past year, and remember to be grateful for being alive to face the dawning of a new year. As we do so, let's turn our minds to the urgent issues of human rights, environmental issues, and social justice that rage today. Today's sermon is called Reflections from Standing Rock by Kristen Grassell Schmidt. It describes her experience in early November of 2016 when she joined 500 clergy to stand with Native American tribal elders in confronting the history of injustice against Native peoples in this country and to oppose the Dakota Access Pipeline from being routed through their sacred lands. The Dakota Access Pipeline is the main conduit for flowing crude oil out of North Dakota to refiners in the Midwest and exporters in the US Gulf. It was a controversial project that sparked massive protests starting in 2016 in North Dakota by Native tribes and climate activists opposed to its completion. The Dakota Access Pipeline is currently allowed to operate on federal land without a permit. Reverend Kristen Grassell Schmidt is a senior co-minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley. There are a few announcements we would like to share. During the service, we will mention several website and email addresses and phone numbers. At the end of the service, we will leave up a slide with all this information so that you don't need to copy things down right now. However, for those needing the information by auditory means, they will be announced verbally during the service. Chat time provides an opportunity to spend an hour talking among ourselves, usually beginning with the service, then wandering on to other topics. It's held on Zoom at 11:30. But to participate, you need a separate Zoom invitation. So please go to our website at uuchurchofriverside.org for the Zoom chat time registration. Camp de Benneville Pines. Camp de Benneville Pines is a wonderful place for camping events and retreats owned by the congregations and fellowships of the Pacific Southwest District of the Unitarian Universalist Association. It is at an elevation of 6,800 feet, just off Highway 38, on the way up to Big Bear. Like the rest of the world, the year 2020 has been difficult for those up on the mountain. They have been affected by both the COVID-19 pandemic and weather events. All on-site events were canceled through March 31st, 2021, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The aftermath of the El Dorado fire damage and the seriousness of the pandemic could well require further delays to reopening. They are now working to protect the camp from the fire after effects and subsequent damage from rain and flooding. Periodically, they look for volunteers to help with various tasks, and they can always use financial donations. This is posted on their website. We must now address our newest threat to camp's existence, flooding into camp buildings and roads. It is a big task, and preparing for the worst case of ash and mud flow into the camp will be costly. Initial estimates are around $250,000. Our wellhead can potentially get buried under mud flow, and without the forest duff and vegetation behind our camp, the cabins are at risk of being flooded. This puts the existence of your sacred space in the mountains in jeopardy once again. To this end, the COVID-19 Emergency Fund Drive shifts now to do double duty and has been renamed Camp's 2020-2021 Emergency Fund Drive. The fund drive will continue to seek donations to cover operational expenses and will now also need to raise money to help pay for fire and water flow mitigation. Additionally, we shall apply for grant funds to help offset the costs of erosion and flood mitigation. To learn more, go to uucamp.org. On the first Sunday of each month, we share with you the joys and concerns that we have received throughout the month. The next one that is scheduled for Sunday, December 1st. Be sure to email or text your joys and concerns throughout the month to our Caring Network Coordinator, Dinah Rowe. Her email is ramblinrose22@yahoo.com. Or you can call or text her at 909-645-2885. President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris have been declared the winners of the hard-fought 2020 presidential election. But there's nothing about this election season that is normal. In the fight to follow the laws and norms of our country, perhaps through Inauguration Day and beyond, will have the effect of continuing to pull us into opposing, increasingly entrenched camps. It's easy for some of us to pull into one camp, feeling secure, and ignore the long-term destruction this division in our country creates. Being angry, resentful, full of "I told you so's" isn't helpful. A search of the internet for what UUs are doing now that the elections are legally over reveals some interesting sites. Lots of UUs are determined not to be lulled back into a stupor for 4 years, especially now. UU the Vote, which has been mentioned before, is part of the UU Justice Ministry of California. So you can go to uujmca.org. That's UU Justice Ministry of California. They have many different programs, actions, and trainings going on all year. UUJMCA is also part of CUUSAN, which you see on the screen right now. That stands for Coalition of UU State Action Networks. Worried about the pandemic, environment, social justice issues? Do you think our future is worth it? It's up to each and every one of us. On October 20th, Riverside County moved back into the more restrictive Tier 1 or purple tier of the governor's 4-tier plan towards reopening. That means churches, along with many other businesses and organizations, must shut down indoor operations. We will continue to keep you updated on Sunday mornings and on the website. Riverside County has long been second in the number of cases in the state, and we are frequently second to Los Angeles in the number of deaths. The county is asking everyone to please get tested. There's no charge and no limit on how many times you can be tested. For more information, go to ribcoph.org/coronavirus or go to our website. For the most current and reliable information on the COVID-19 virus for your area, go to the website for your county public health department or the state of California. You can also find information and links on our church website. The monthly UUCR newsletter comes out the first of every month by email and per request by postal mail. If you have something you would like covered or that you want to write, let Dinah know at ramblingrose22@yahoo.com or call or text her at 909-645-2885. We have two lightings of sacred flames. The first is Occupied Indigenous Peoples Remembrance Candle, and the second is the lighting of our own chalice, the symbol of our faith. Let us acknowledge that we walk upon the traditional territories of the Maranga, the original people of this land, who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. In honor of the Maranga people, we, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside, light this sacred flame as the stewards of this sacred and holy place. We are blessed with a space and opportunity to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to live out our dream of a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. Our chalice lighting this morning is A Flame to Light Our Path by Deborah Burrell. Fire consumes and casts a bright light. May our chalice flame consume our regrets for the past, our fears about the future, and our worries about today. May it light for us a path of joy and peace. Our next hymn is Spirit of Life. Please rise in spirit and join us.
Of compassion.
And now Dinah Rowe, our church treasurer, will speak to us about sharing our treasure.
Good morning. This portion of our service is how we fund all that we do to care for our congregation and our beloved historic church, and to ensure that when we're able to safely reopen again, we will be here to welcome you all back. A reminder that even though the church is not allowed to reopen at this time, church expenses continue. Just a few of the expenses which are ongoing are the utilities, the insurance, and security company. Our administrator, Robert, pays the bills and answers inquiries to the church, plus other administrative duties which come up on a daily basis. You can mail your pledge and donations to the church office. Please, no cash. Our church office address is shown here and will be available later in this program. Stater Brothers and script cards are available for your grocery shopping that also earns our church a percentage. Please contact me or the church office to purchase Stater Brothers cards. You may also request Stater Brothers cards sent by mail. For those of you who have purchased Amazon gift cards, another way to help the church is when making your purchases through Amazon, go to smile.amazon.com. Be sure to have the word smile and choose Universalist Unitarian Church as your charity. We receive 0.5% of your qualifying purchases, and by using an Amazon script card, we receive a percentage from both. I will be taking orders for script cards again as the holidays approach, probably around the 1st of December. The gift cards make good gifts to put in with your holiday cards. So start making your list now, and I'll contact you the 1st of December. Please donate by whatever method works best for you. Thank you for your generosity, and to those who give of their time and their talent, thank you for your generous care and attention. Our next hymn is From You I Receive. Please rise again in spirit and join us. We'll sing through this 3 times.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
This morning prayer is a Celtic Lorica by Reverend Maureen Killeran. Spirit of all blessing, be with us in the ordinariness of our days. May hope's light guard us and keep cynicism from our hearts. May the energy of laughter build endurance for the dark times of our lives. May creativity's vision grant the possibility of seeing old relationships with new eyes. May the oil of healing keep us from anger's hardness or despair. May the mantle of humility give courage to admit when we are wrong. May compassion's loom weave in us the discipline to forgive. May patience help us bear in mind that ours is not the only scale of time. May the flame of justice be a beacon for the choices we must make. May peace be ever in us and sustain our stressful days. Spirit of all blessing, be with us in the ordinariness of our days. Now let us pause to share a moment of silence. And now I welcome Steve Fuji to read to us the words of the Reverend Kristen Grassell Schmidt. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Grace. So this is Reflection from Standing Rock by Reverend Kristen Grassell Schmidt, Senior Co-Minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley. Over 500 years ago, European governments adopted something called the doctrine of discovery. Any lands and resources not already ruled by a European Christian monarch automatically became the property of whatever government whose subjects traveled to and occupied the territory. This doctrine of discovery is what legitimized the colonization of the Americas and later other lands, and the genocide and enslavement of millions of indigenous peoples. It was also the doctrine that gave various Christian denominations justification for establishing missions all over colonial territories and forcibly converting millions of indigenous peoples to Christianity. I tell you this history because I want you to understand how profound it was for me to be among the 500 clergy who gathered with elders from many tribes at Standing Rock in early November 2016 to publicly beg forgiveness for our tradition's roles in the decimation of Native peoples and their cultures. And I want you to smell the smoke I smelled from the sacred fire the Standing Rock Sioux have kept burning since they established the Ochedi-Sakowin camp to try to prevent the Dakota Access Pipeline from being routed through their sacred lands, from being laid at all, given the horrible risk such a pipeline would pose to the water supply of tens of millions of people down the river. I want you to feel the catch I felt in my throat as UUA President Reverend Peter Morales participated in burning a copy of the Doctrine of Discovery. I want you to feel the dizzy disbelief I felt at the generosity of these people whose entire trajectories my culture has all but annihilated, and my amazement as their grandmothers smudged and blessed me when the purpose of my trip had been to try to support them. I want you to feel the rage that burned in the bottom of my stomach as I saw the heaps of personal belongings and sacred objects the police had trashed after they arrested, stripped, numbered on the arm with permanent marker, and left overnight in unheated cells the size of dog kennels, several peaceful water protectors. And I want you to feel that rage quadruple as I did when I learned that the pipeline had originally been routed to go through the Bismarck, but that it had been rerouted when that city's mainly white citizenry objected, worried about a leak jeopardizing their water supply. The rage of learning that the governor of North Dakota and his closest friends stand to personally profit from the completed pipeline. I want you to feel the tension I felt as I walked from camp to the front line where a militarized police force had positioned burned out vehicles and officers in SWAT gear to keep water protectors from even being able to see the destruction the oil companies' construction workers were waging as they dug through sacred lands that include burial and battlegrounds as hallowed as the Lakota and Dakota peoples, as Gettysburg or the Alamo are to many of us. I want you to feel the sense of unease I felt, the sense of being under a microscope, as a police helicopter and later a small prop plane circled just overhead of us, as we clergy confessed and prayed, sang, and listened to the stories and urgings of the tribal elders. I want you to feel the great sadness that slowly settled into me more every hour I was in that place, so saturated with over a century of loss and theft and violence. The sadness of knowing that my lifestyle is contributing to the hunger for oil. The sadness I felt as I learned that the police were using that same helicopter and plane, along with sound cannons and huge prison yard lights, to deprive the water protectors from sleep at night. The sadness that while I got to get back on a plane and fly home to my healthy family and the new home and job that I love, many of these peaceful and strong and admirable people would remain at the camp through the winter, or go back to lives in which simply going grocery shopping can be impossible because racist cashiers routinely refuse to serve Native Americans. There's so much more of what I saw that I want to share with all of you, but I want to end with what I think is the most important part of my experience at Standing Rock, the sense of the sacred every time I met a water protector. Their grounding in prayer, their profound spiritual maturity left me greatly humbled. Never once did I hear any of them, whether in personal conversation or from a microphone, speak with hatred toward the police who have been injuring them, or toward the Americans whose greed for wealth and hunger for oil have forever crippled the natural resources of the continent that they honored for millennia before colonization. Instead, they spoke of their growing concern of this pipeline and a prophecy that foretells great destruction if a black snake is allowed to travel from the top to the bottom of North America. And they spoke always of a need for all of us to heal, all of us to repent, all of us to change our ways and live in alignment with the goodness and bounty and beauty of the earth we share. A water protector I met there named Shashi reminded me of something I'd forgotten. The word apocalypse literally means the lifting of the veil, or the time when people begin to see what's always been in front of them. We know that relying on oil to power our lives is bad for the earth, and as such, bad for us. Our culture has been working really hard for a really long time to ignore that truth. Made my tiny contribution to supporting Indigenous self-determination and supporting the water protectors at Standing Rock. May the contributions of each of us in our own way help tip our world into a new age. May the contributions of each of us help tip our world into a new moral revival where people are valued more than profits, where the health of our planet is valued more than lifestyle convenience, and where love of human diversity is valued more than fear. So let's take in that message.
Thank you, Steve, for that message. Our closing hymn is Go Now in Peace. Please rise in spirit and join us.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere. Spirit of spirit of surround you. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere. Spirit of spirit of love surround you. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere. Spirit of spirit of surround you. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
For our benediction, please close your eyes and reach out to each other in your thoughts. Feel the connection between us, the interconnected web, joining us as a community, a church family. Our benediction is Fitted for This Day by Kimberly Quinn Johnson. Kimberly noted that the first line, which is repeated again as the last line, are the words of June Jordan in Poem for South African Women, which June presented at the UN on August 9th, 1978. Fitted for this day. We are the ones we have been waiting for. We are not perfect, but we are perfectly fitted for this day. We are not without fault, but we can be honest to face our past as we chart a new future. We are the ones we have been waiting for. May we be bold and courageous to chart that new future. May we have faith in a future that is not known. We are the ones we have been waiting for. Amen. Shalom and blessed be.